Pendo's professional services engineering team, also known as expert services. I'm going to show you some custom engineering solutions, specifically for guides in the Resource Center. Some of these are projects that our team has built for specific customers, but I want to show you them as inspiration for what you can do to go beyond Pendo's out-of-the-box functionality. We'll look at a few styling customizations for guides, and then a few use cases for the Resource Center's sandbox feature. If you're not an engineer, don't let the term engineering scare you off here. A lot of the things I'll show don't require any coding knowledge because the code has already been written for you. So the first few solutions I'll show all come from our public snippets repository. If you haven't seen this, it's a collection of custom code hosted on GitHub that anyone can use. It's maintained by various teams at Pendo, and it's a place where we share little tweaks that we build and that we think others will find useful. The URL for the repo is listed here in the slide, but if you do a Google search for just Pendo snippets, the GitHub link should be the first result. I should mention that the code in this collection is not officially supported by Pendo's product, engineering, and support teams. We put it out there as an informal resource, but we don't provide support for these snippets like we would for the rest of the platform. Okay. But there's a lot more than just guide customizations in the repository, but I'm going to focus on some guide snippets here. These little pieces of code can be added to an existing guide via a code block. For those not familiar, a code block is a building block, just like text, images, or buttons, that you can add when editing a guide in the Pendo Designer. Once you insert the code block, you'll see the option to add HTML, CSS, and JavaScript that will run when the guide is displayed. You can use code blocks for all kinds of things, but what I'll show here is mainly for changing the appearance of a guide. This first snippet is one of the most popular ones from the collection. Some of you may even be using this already. What you're seeing here is actually a number scale poll that's been restyled. So instead of showing the options from 1 to 5 for the user to pick from, it shows these faces ranging from sad to happy. This snippet is super easy to use, it's plug and play, and you don't need to be a developer to add it to a guide. In this format, the poll is much better suited to collect users' sentiment, and it may also align better with your design guidelines. Sometimes it's just more intuitive for a user to select a happy face than it is for them to select, say, number 4. This screenshot also shows a number scale poll that's been restyled. Just like the smiley face snippet, this is taking the default 1 through 5 poll options and changing their appearance, in this case to stars. So the poll response on the back end will still be counted as a number from 1 to 5 if you're looking at your metrics in your Pendo dashboard. But what the user actually sees is the familiar 5-star rating system. Here's another example of how code blocks can supplement the default guide options. What I want to point out here is the progress bar that you see at the bottom of the guide. That progress bar is a reusable asset that you can add to each guide step as you're building it. So when you set this up, you would define the labels that you want to use for each stage in that progress bar. And then for each guide step, you'd add the code snippet and specify which stages in the progress bar should show up as complete. So in this example, we're marking the first 2 as complete. This next snippet is going even further in terms of adding on to the default guide functionality. And I'm a little biased here because I made it, but I think it's pretty cool. When you add this code to a banner guide, it'll create the little arrow tab you can see at the top of the guide there. That can be clicked to then expand or collapse the guide container. The status of the guide, meaning whether it's collapsed or expanded, is saved in your browser's temporary session storage. So if your user is navigating around your app, the guide can persist and stay in the right state. This is especially useful if you want users to complete more than one action. So maybe they want to hide the guide for a minute, navigate around, do some things in your app to complete that action, then expand the guide again when they're ready to continue. So you can see here in the screenshot, navigating around, the guide stays expanded, and you can collapse it later. All right, so now that we've seen a few guide customizations, I'm going to move on to the Resource Center and look at some custom solutions for it. Everything we've seen so far is available in that snippets library, but these next few examples are not. These would require a developer resource to set up. What I'll be showing here are examples of what we call sandbox modules. Similar to a custom code block in a guide, a sandbox module allows you to add custom code to create your own module in the resource center. So in addition to the default modules that Pendo offers, like guide list modules, onboarding modules, stuff like that, you have something else in mind, you can pretty much create whatever you want here. They're super versatile because they're just a blank slate. You might create a simple module with a list of links, or you could create a fully interactive mini web app that appears within the resource center. One of the most common use cases for sandbox modules is for integrations with providers that are not supported out of the box. For example, this shows the experience of clicking into a sandbox module that's being used to create a ticketing integration for Jira. When the sandbox module is selected from the menu, that opens up a window where users can submit issues directly into Jira without leaving your app. What's interesting here is that you'll notice when we click the module right here, it opens up a separate window, not in the resource center. So in this case, the sandbox module is being used as a launcher for a separate pre-existing Jira tool, which is that submission window. So we launch that from the resource center, then close the resource center, and then let Jira take over from there and do its thing. So you might have other reasons why you'd want to use the resource center to basically launch or trigger some other existing tool. Here are two examples of knowledge-based integration in the resource center. Pendo supports some common knowledge base providers like Zendesk, Help Scout, and some others with our custom out-of-the-box integrations, or excuse me, not the custom, with the standard out-of-the-box integrations. But for providers that are not currently supported, a custom integration can be a good option. You can find a list of the supported providers in our help docs. Knowledge-based integrations are extremely useful because your users can access help content without ever leaving the app. It's right there for them. The help content can even be tailored to the page they're on. So if you've ever been stuck trying to do something on a website, then you know this is huge. This last example I'll show is really pushing the boundaries of what's possible with these type of customizations. What you're seeing here is a fully custom resource center that was built for Citrix. By the way, thanks to the Citrix team for letting us show this off. But what's cool about this solution is that the content of the resource center can still be edited in the designer like it normally would, but we've created a fully custom wrapper, which makes it look like a native panel in the Citrix app. You can see it kind of slide out there at the beginning of this little clip, and it looks like it's, on brand and matching the rest of the application UI. This is achieved by heavily modifying the Pendo installation snippet itself. So it's a much more advanced option, but I'm just showing it as inspiration for what is possible. So that's all I got. I hope that sparks some ideas for how you can expand your own guide and resource center usage with some customizations. I'm happy to take any questions here before we move on to the next presenter.
Awesome. Thanks so much, John. Michael got to one of the questions in here, but they were asking if they do the same thing with GitHub, but it looks like not quite yet.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Mike.
And then Liz is asking, would also, well, I don't know if this is a question, but would also love CX1 Expert for consideration of a knowledge base integration.
Cool. Yeah, I actually haven't heard of that provider before, but we can check and see if there's an existing request for it, which there very well may be for adding that as a formal productized integration. But if it's not something that's going to be formalized and made official as a out-of-the-box integration, it's a possibility that we could do something custom. And our team is open to doing all kinds of stuff like that. You can reach us at services@pendo.io.
Nice. All right. Well, it looks like a few other people also use CX1s. We might want to add that. That actually gives a great suggestion. If you have an integration that you are wanting us to look into, or a database, help ticketing, and any sort of tool that you utilize that you would want us to connect to, just put it in the chat I can't promise you that it's something that we'll be able to offer, but I do think it's worth us being aware of and adding it to our integration list to look into. So great. Well, thanks, John. We appreciate that
Sure thing.
presentation. So let's go ahead and have Rick.
Hey, everybody. Let me just grab my screen here. Okay, so my name is Rick Cadlack. I'm on the product operations team. I lead our systems functions around product operations. I've been on product operations here at Pendo for over 2 years. I'm a longtime Pendozer. I've been at Pendo for 6 years, and just prior to moving over to product operations, I manage our global technical success team. So we're going to talk about NPS today, but not just the normal NPS, not the NPS you just get from the product. So I'm sure you want to hear more, interesting ways we can make use of NPS data. And those of you who have not heard from NPS, I'm not going to do a real deep dive here, but NPS is a very simple metric, right, to allow you to gauge interest from your and customer loyalty. It's a simple question, right? Would you recommend our product to a friend or colleague? You have a 0 through 10 score. The Pendo product has this, right, as a feature to collect NPS. 0 to 6 is a detractor, 7 to 8, neutral, 9 to 10, a promoter, right? The Pendo product itself, we use we took all of our insight, right, to build this product from Bain & Company system, right? So the Bain & Company trademarked NPS system itself. So it's not unique to Pendo in this way. We do have some really cool features. I'll go a little bit into these features. These are not real email addresses on the bottom left, if you could see. Space Y would be a cool company though. But yeah, so these are all some of the in-product graphs and features that we have around NPS. You could, if you want to learn some more about these, you could check out our help center, our product pages, check out the product itself, check out the feature itself about NPS. Some of the really interesting things here, the fact that, Pendo has all your product analytics data, and then looking at NPS with the product analytics data, we have some unique proprietary type graphs around that. So I encourage you to take a look into those aspects, particularly if you haven't used Pendo NPS before. So they're really great, actually. It's really interesting to see that. And it's pretty unique. But let's talk about Beyond, right? So I was thinking about a good graphic for Beyond, and there's this I know movie that just came out. I think it's called Lightyear. My 5-year-old really wants to see it, and it looks great. If you ever just check out the preview for it, I'm sure I'll be seeing it soon. So, but yeah. So let's talk about everything beyond the product itself. Okay, so this is a little bit of a cheat because the product does have an integration to do NPS to Slack, and we do make use of it here at Pendo. So everything I'm showing you here are things that our own product operations team, that what we use in conjunction with NPS, right? How do we extend NPS beyond what the typical things are? We do make use of this integration. The reason I listed it in here is because it's one way to get NPS data out of the product. But here's the configuration page for that. You can send your NPS responses to Slack. Yeah. Here's an example of a real NPS response from like yesterday, right? That was sent through into Slack for our internal Slack. Obviously, I pulled a lot of information out of this, so it's just a lot of black boxes. But I think the one thing I really want to point out here is that take a look at that dog pile of people, right, on the bottom that responded to this. And if you don't notice or recognize the little head in the particular bottom left of it, right, that is our CEO. So while it's not always a wise thing to take a look at one NPS response and determine product roadmap or anything like this, right? This is a very interesting way to keep the company engaged in customer feedback in this way. So it just keeps it top of mind and keeps it going. You don't want to make your big product decisions based off of this, but this is good for responding to individual NPS responses. The next thing we do is we do this thing called tagging and categorization. So we take our text responses from NPS and we categorize them into topics, right, and themes around our product. This is not done within the Pendo product, right? So maybe one day we'll have this as a feature, but you know, it's not anything that we have planned currently or anything like that. But we you know, we really want to we make use of this right now. So what we do is we have several different categories that we can categorize, like our promoters, passive and detractors into. So we get to these nice, we end up with these nice visualizations using a third-party data viz software, right? We use Looker internally here, but you can use anything, right? This could be anything. This could even be just a graph you made with, you know, Excel or whatever, right? Any way you want to visualize data. I do want to give you a little step-by-step way to sort of walk through this and how we approach this too, though, right? So first thing you want to do, if you're thinking about doing this, this is the categorization of the text responses coming back from NPS, right? So when you do NPS, you get the initial score, the 0 to 10, and then you get your text responses from that. So you want to think thoughtfully about like what product area themes do you care about, right? What are your actual themes? I suggest you think about this too prior to doing it in any kind of automated way. I think actually have a thoughtful you know, meeting where people get in a room and, you know, whiteboard this and how would you break your product up, right? And not only how would you break your product up based on the product areas, but how would you break your product up with like what are some other common things that NPS responses could be tagged with? So some example would be like bugs, performance issues, UI UX issues, right? So some sort of probably every company could use those types of tags, right? As maybe a sub tag or an additional tag on something like this, right? And it helps to identify these issues that way. The next thing you want to do is you want to think about, do you have, you know, are you a small startup? Are you a large enterprise organization? Could you do a test of this? Could you do this with just some manual tagging, right? And pull this data out, manually tag it if you just want to do a quick test and see if it makes sense for you to do this with your organization if you're not currently doing this, right? Do you want to put this in sheets or something like this and go ahead and do it that way, right? Obviously, you get to a certain point where that's really difficult or impossible to do that, and then you have to go into like some natural language processing tagging. Caveat there, right? If you go in and if you get into any NLP tagging, you're probably going to want to have, you know, NLP could take a couple different ways. You could do sentiment analysis, which is pretty easy for those tools or libraries, right? To come up with sentiment. But if you want to do any kind of topic analysis, you're still going to want to think about your topics, right? And how you want to bucket things. And then you're probably going to have to train a model and all that. There's also third-party systems, right? That do this kind of thing. But that's that could get a lot more involved once you get into training a model. And even if you train a model, right, it's the first model, you get the first data you get back from while you're starting to train your model is not going to be the most accurate thing. And so you're going to want to, it's going to be a longer process, right, to get that kind of data. So that's why if you have a really small data set, sometimes it makes sense to just do this manually to start. Where do you want to store the data? So if you're doing it on a small scale, you know, Google Sheets, Excel, whatever makes sense, all the way up to a data warehouse, right? So if you're doing something automated, then you have a data warehouse, it probably makes sense to pump that into a data warehouse, especially if you have some kind of visualization system hooked up to your data warehouse. So create a visualization, Looker, whatever, you know, any of the other data viz tools that are out there that can directly link to a data warehouse. They're helpful. And then you wow your execs, right? We all want to do this. So whenever you get this data coming out of here, it is really, really interesting and really helpful to see. And you don't want to use this to, you know, as this is just another data point, right? For you to help make smart product decisions, right? So you could do, you've got all your other, you know, data, you can get Pendo analytics data and all this kind of thing. But when you take this out and really break this out in the product, you can, especially if you have enough data, you can get, you know, where it's like statistically significant, you get enough data there. You can see that some themes, right? That you know, common themes, common problem areas. This really helped us at Pendo determine some problem areas that we had, and what we really needed to focus on at times, right? So people are telling us, or they're giving us their feedback about the problems, and we can see and break it down by topic, right? Because you don't want to look at that, where we saw that NPS to Slack example earlier. That's really good for those individual things. But if you want to see, if you want to make some smart product decisions, you need to see more, right? More than that, you need to see it in a bulk way. Now, I want to take a pause for a second and talk a little bit about webhooks. I love webhooks. It'll make sense why I'm talking about webhooks in a second, but webhooks are great. So when Pendo created the webhook feature, I was so excited. So this enabled me to do so much more, right? With certain types of data that we have. Prior to webhooks, what do you have to do, right? What do you have to do to access the data outside of the Pendo, right? So you want to use your API, and so you're going to do something called polling, right? You're going to check every couple minutes. You need to have a script or a third-party tool that's accessing it and doing that polling. If there's any data there, right, you'll get it back. And this is a common API, ETL flow and all that, right? But webhooks allowed us to send this data out as soon as there's an update. Now, while polling is really great, if you want to pull data out, like bulk API data for feeding a data warehouse, or some like mass analysis, I think webhooks are really, really helpful for when you're doing small operational flows, right? So small operational flows based on specific data. And so that's the way we use it here. I'll give a little example on the next slide here. So we have this concept of a conditional follow-up to our NPS responses. So the default NPS response functionality that you get, right? You get the poll, and then you ask the question, and then somebody can put that text response in there or not. We take this a step further, right? So if somebody gives us, is a detractor or a passive, right? And they give us a text response, we don't do anything else, because if they told us why they didn't, what their problem was or what their issues are, we don't want to bother them any further. We leave it be, right? And so you can see that's part of my logic stream here. If they give us a negative score, right, or a detractor or passive score, and they want, they don't give us any text response on this, we want to know more information if they want to give it to us. So if they want to give us some more information, we attempt to do that, right? So we reach out with an additional email that looks very personalized, and if any of you have ever gotten this email, I'm sorry, it's not coming from an actual individual, right? This is part of automation. But if you do respond to it, right, it comes back to our team here, and I'll show you that in a second. But if you're, let's say, if you love us, right, and so we get a 9 or 10, and some of you may have seen this as well, so you get some other email, and we redirect you to actually Aaron. So we redirect you to Aaron here. So so you get an automatic. It's not really Aaron sending, right? It's Aaron's responses. But we want you to go to G2, right, and review us. Review us positively if you give us a really good NPS score. So this kind of flow, taking like a positive score and then trying to get good reviews based off of it. This is not uncommon. I think mobile technology used it for a long time with the App Store scores, right? You probably see that all the time, right? If you're using an app, and hey, and if you show some way that you some trigger or way that you're using the product, right, where they where it seems like you're going to review positively for the App Store, right? You'll probably be the one to get that prompt to do that. Now, on the flip side, if you're not happy with the NPS, we want to find out this additional information. What we're going to do is you get this email. It looks like it's coming from Christine. It's not really coming from Christine at the moment, but if you do respond to it, it does go to Christine. It goes to myself. It goes to several others in the product operations team, and it goes to our Chief Customer Officer, Ben Carey, currently. Now let's sort of review this, right? So there's a couple ways you can approach this if you want to do some additional follow-up action based, beyond the typical NPS follow-up response, right? So you want to decide some conditional logic, like what are you going to do, right? Do you want to send a different score, a different response, or ask them a different additional question based on if they're passive versus promoter? I suggest you do, right? So that, because obviously they're very different mindsets at that point. Do you want to keep this in app, right? So there's ways of sort of what John was showing earlier, right? You can customize your code on your guide, and you can make a really custom NPS poll here, right? And so that's what this GIF is alluding to. This is in the product. This is not going through some automation system like I showed. Or do you want to send it out, do an email follow-up via some automation system like Zapier, Tray.io, or Workato, right? Whatever tool you might have. If you have any of these automation tools, what do you want to do there? Think about the copy, right? What do you want to say to the customers for the email or the poll? What do you want to say? What are you asking them? Right? And then enjoy this really additional thoughtful feedback. One thing that we noticed is for anyone that ever answers this particular question, when they actually do respond to it, it is like night and day difference, right? So when somebody actually takes the time to respond to this email, it is extremely thoughtful and helpful. And we it surprises me, actually. It's usually a book, right? Somebody will write a whole book to respond to this, and it's like they really pour their hearts out to give us feedback, and we take it very seriously when we get this. Great. Any questions? Let me open up my chat now. Sorry, I've been watching it.
Yes, and I do love that I am the person that gets the emails from promoter NPS responses. It's really great to see what people say replying to those emails. And we do appreciate all the G2 reviews that we get from that email as well. So thank you. So there were a few questions, and I think you highlighted this already, but they say there's a question of, do you have a recommended tools for automating the NLP text response categorization?
Yeah, so I don't know if I could recommend anything in particular. There are, I mean, if you do a Google search, there's like several companies that do this. You could even do, I know like Google, if you house any data within Google itself, right? Google actually has ways to do this. If you're trying to build it in-house and keep it, not use a service, right? There's lots of libraries and like Python libraries and things like this that do this. So yeah, there's actually a lot of options. I guess it could be overwhelming at times. I don't know if I can give a particular recommendation though on that currently.
Nice. And then yeah. So what you were showing with like the email responses, someone was asking, is that like a future NPS? But I do know you can get that set up today. So can you just highlight, you integrate with, or you do that with Tray, correct?
Yeah. So where we're doing that automation to get the email responses not in Pendo, right? So we do this with Tray.io. You could do this with Workato, Zapier, any kind of automation tool. But not in Pendo. These are all
ways
this is the juicy part behind the scenes, right? Extending the product. You're not seeing the typical you're getting a little window into product ops at Pendo here.
Nice. Well, thanks, Rick. That was really great to see. And all right, so next up we have Jen to do a product update.
Yeah, thanks, Erin. Let's see, we'll get it all set up. All right, hey guys, I'm Jen Lucas, Senior Product Manager here, working on guides. And today we're going to talk about guide orchestration. So really excited. So yeah, software is everywhere. And with this wave of software in our lives, we have all become very users with high expectations, right? Like I have super high expectations of the software around me, and users are quick to move on. We we're using things like Netflix, Instagram every day. They're setting the bar higher and higher every day on what a good experience can look like. And so I love guides because it's a really nice complement to your strategy in meeting users' expectation on experience. And guides are great too, because you don't have to hire more developers in order to get this information out there, right? Until they aren't. So what we see sometimes is guide experiences can be bad. There might be too many guides. Guides might have too many steps in them. Maybe it's not relevant. It's not targeted to the right users. There's lots of ways that guides could potentially create a poor experience, but it's not your fault. There's really not tools out there to help you understand what the end user's experience is and to alleviate the worry of spamming users. And so we've heard from customers this fear of guiding users to death. We talk about this all the time at Pendo. And maybe you can resonate with some of these quotes that we've heard from people. There's a fear that we're going to display hundreds of guides to users. Someone's going to come in and have a 1999 web surfing experience with pop-ups everywhere. When I tell somebody about Pendo, they ask, how do we know that the users aren't being bombarded? Another one, we are concerned about inundating people with too many guides. We've seen NPS feedback on that. We are conscious of this, and we're putting this into our process. And then finally, we need some kind of central ownership. Even if marketing and sales and everybody was creating their own kinds of guides, a way to know how many guides are popping up in a customer environment, so that we're not overwhelming users with different guides from different part of the organization. So don't know if any of you guys out there are thinking about this. I know a lot of people are, especially our guide admins. So we already know that Pendo can empower you to create beautiful, super personalized guides that match your app. But once those guides are built, we want to make sure that they're fitting into your holistic strategy. So you have all of your guides already. You've created this new guide. How does that fit into everything else that's going on? And so what we're thinking is the best guides have to do both. They have to be beautiful and personalized, and they have to be delivered to the right person at the right time in the larger experience that's going on. So the old way is guide clutter. The new way is guide orchestration. Okay, so what's guide orchestration? We want to help you guys provide control over guide creation, delivery, and management to ensure a successful guides program. As you use guides over a period of time, you're going to have a lot of guides building up. Maybe you're already there, and you're ready for us to step in and help you out with that. So here's a few things that we're thinking about and we want to help solve for all of you out there. We're thinking about guide management. How can Pendo better categorize, schedule, and measure guides across your portfolio? Like I said, when you have a big number of guides, we hear, help us make sense of our guides, help us understand what's live, what use cases are we solving for? Secondly, we're thinking about a better end user experience. I have this guide. How do I deliver it to the right person at the right time and reduce that overwhelming feeling? And then lastly, we want to help you prioritize guides and optimize your portfolio. So we want to think about, at a high level, how are you curating your portfolio of guides to make sure that end user experience is great? How can we set priorities ahead of time and have guides follow suit without and taking out that kind of burden of management into the process? All right, so a peek at the product roadmap. I've got a little now, next, later for you. So yeah, let's dig in. Okay, so now live, we've made some changes to the ordering and throttling page for any of you that are familiar with this, or for maybe for those of you who aren't. If you're thinking about putting some boundaries around your guides experience, this is the place to go. This is where you can put some settings around how many guides a user can see in a period of time. And then you can determine what are the order of those guides. So I can make sure the most important ones are coming first. So if you're not utilizing this today, take a look, check it out. So the changes that we've made here for our seasoned users here, we've made a lot of usability enhancements to make this easier to do. Like I mentioned, if you've got hundreds of guides, they can become kind of difficult. We've also added some features here, some filtering and searching. So if you want to come in and understand what do my live guides look like what is the experience today, you can filter down and search for that. Or what is the experience on this particular page? I just want to understand how many guides are appearing on this page and what is that experience like? You can answer that question as well as filtering for product area. So I'm a PM for guides. I want to understand what guides are appearing on guides, or whatever example makes the most sense for you. Similarly, if I'm looking for a particular guide, I can jump to that and understand where is that falling in priority. So a lot of tools here to help you understand that holistic experience, but still zone into those individual guides and what's happening there. So this is currently live. This is out here. Take a look, check it out, and give us feedback. We love to hear it. Up next, I'm really excited about this. This is called guide categorization. So going back to thinking about guide management, we hear people say we want to group guides, we want folders for guides, we want to understand what are the buckets of guides. And so guide categorization is going to be a foundational piece helping solve for that. So in talking to customers, we saw that the use case was extremely important for guides. What is the job to be done of this guide? Is it an onboarding guide? Is it showing a new feature? Is it showing upcoming maintenance? All of those important use cases that you're thinking about when you start to build a guide. So in Q2, we're currently building this, the ability to tag guides by the use case. And then we have some lovely features coming to the guides list page where admins will be able to come in, filter, search. This example here, we have grouping by the guide category where you can see here are all my live guides grouped by the use case and just get a sense of what do we have live now? We have onboarding guides. We have some new features live. What are the use cases that we're solving for today? So really excited about this. Like I said, this will be coming out later this quarter. Okay, and thinking about later, so this is something that's kind of in research and development. We are testing this with customers. So if you have feedback on this, we would love to hear it. Now is the time. So guide categories, it's great for organizing, but we want to help that drive features down the road. How can that continue to automate and make guide management easier over time? So something we're thinking about here is how can we drive priority ordering at a larger level using category. So here we have maybe our urgent alerts we always want to see first. And then from there, we want to see the onboarding guides next. And then in this example, we have event guides next. So kind of thinking about that curation of your experience, like what are most important categories, what has to be seen, and then what maybe should be considered in more of like a round robin type of situation. So yeah, so these are some things we're thinking about. If you have comments on them, like please drop them in the chat. Let me know. We would love to hear what you have to say about this and what you think. And yeah, here is my email. We would love to hear from you. We're always recruiting for admins or any other guide users who want to talk to us about guides, specifically guide orchestration. We would love to hear from you as well. Yeah, and that's it from me.
Awesome. Thanks, Jen. I can tell you're on the right track because people are very excited in the chat saying that they're excited for the things that are becoming available and for the future. So we did get one question of, do guides created in the Pendo VDS for Pendo Adopt actually respect guide throttling in Pendo Adopt?
Pendo Adopt. So sorry, I'm reading this again. Do guides created in the Pendo Pendo for Pendo Adopt, Respect, Guide, Throttling, and Pendo Adopt. I don't believe they have throttling at this point. I can check and make sure for you. Rick, I don't know if you know off the top of your head.
I don't, but we'll follow up. So yeah, we'll dig into this. I actually don't know the answer to it.
Yeah, I'll take a note of that, Caleb.
Nice. Well, great. Well, then I'm going to wrap things up. You definitely want to stick around for my other cool stuff that I'm going to share. So we're super excited. You may have seen this already in the customer newsletter, but we have the save the date for Pendomonium this year. It's going to be September 12th through 14th in Raleigh, North Carolina. So if you want to, in the follow-up email, there'll be a link for you to be able to put your email address in. So once tickets become available, you can be first in line and you can snag at that super early bird pricing. So we're very excited about Pendomonium this year and have everyone back in Raleigh. And speaking about Pendomonium, we want to hear from you. We know that you all do really unique and creative ways. And the one thing that we hear for people attending Pendomonium is the breakout sessions is their favorite part. And we know that you have really great stories to tell. So we want to hear from you. Also included in the follow-up email, we will be sending a link of how you can submit to speak. We have about 32, I believe, breakout sessions, and the majority of those are customer-led. So it's a great opportunity for you to speak and let us know all the cool ways that you're using Pendo. Also, speaking of unique ways, we also will be doing customer awards, and we have a few categories highlighted here: business impact, most impactful feedback program, strategic use of product analytics. These are all ways that we want to hear how you may be doing that within your company, so we can have we announce award winners at the event. And so speaker submissions are due by June 27th, and the customer awards is due by July 5th. And we will be sending the links out that are here in the follow-up email when I send out the recording to the event. As always, you've heard things today from John and Rick of ways that you can get more out of Pendo through either an integration or utilizing the professional services team. So please make sure that you're reaching out to your CSM to make sure you're getting the most out of your Pendo instance. Also, our Pendo user groups. So these are customer-led events, and we will be having our very first in-person event in Dallas on June 16th. I'll be including details for that. So if you are based in Dallas, be sure to join in. It's a nice way to get free some drinks and some snacks and meet with other Pendo users. I know that all of us are eager to be back in person, so we're really excited for Liz to be hosting this Dallas event in person next week. All right, so I know that a lot of you have been commenting in here about loving the ways that you are getting things out of Pendo, but if you ever are talking to other product managers or people in customer success or just other people you know that really could utilize Pendo, kind of similar when you refer somebody to apply to a job, it's kind of the same way of referring a friend to connect to utilize Pendo. And you can earn up to $550 and get a free ticket to Pendomonium this year. So if you do have somebody who could benefit from using Pendo on their product, head over to pendo.io/refer-a-friend to learn how you can submit them there. Also, Mind the Product. You may have heard that we have joined forces with Mind the Product, and any Pendo customer will now receive 50% off of the Mind the Product membership with the code Pendo50. So be sure to utilize a lot of their trainings for product management. And that's all I have. So I really appreciate you all joining us. We did do this at a different time. We normally host this 4 p.m. Eastern. So please let me know if this is a time that works well for you. You want to stick with that 4 p.m. We still want to be EMEA friendly. So just let us know. We always want that feedback of timing and the format of the event. So just you will get a survey 20 minutes after the event. So feel free to provide us the feedback. So thank you so much for your time and have a good rest of your day.